All right, we're talking about all these earnings and we're pouring into some of these numbers that are getting posted, especially within the IT sector. And one number that really draws our attention is the kind of remuneration package that the CEOs of Indian IT companies are taking home. It is quite large, considering that there are headwinds against the IT sector as a whole. We wonder whether these salaries are actually justified. But let's just understand them. They continue to be on the rise. How much of a rise are we seeing over there? Let's get in Anisha Jain. My colleague is here, and she's been looking at the same kind of numbers that we've been pouring over. She's here to put it in context for us. Anisha, what do we see when we look at the remuneration packages of CEOs within the IT industry?
While Theory Teleport gets around 80 crore as his annual salary, this is almost 1,000 times the median salary. And the number remains similar for other IT giants as well. For Infosys, for instance, it's almost 872 times the median earning of an average employee. And the number is even more staggering when it comes to Tech Mahindra, which is close to 1200x. Even for TCS, that number remains very, very large, because as compared to what Rajesh Gopinathan draws at 26 crores, this is almost 400 times than what an average employee makes. Let's compare it with the fresher salary as well, because the biggest talk on the town has been that the fresher salaries have remained stagnant for the last 10 to 15 years. A fresher at the moment at HCL Tech gets just around 4.5 or 4.25 lakh crore rupees per annum, and that compares to 35 lakh that CVK draws every single day. This is not where the story ends. We have a lot more to go by. Let's go on to Wipro as well, wherein the CEO's per day salary is close to 22 lakh rupees per annum, and for Wipro, fresher salary is expected around 3 to 4 lakh rupees. So that's the kind of divergence that we are seeing across the sector. For Infosys as well, where the fresher salaries have remained stagnant at 3.5 to 4 lakh rupees, the CEO is getting 5 times of that amount, because the CEO draws around 20 lakh per day. And even if you come to the likes of TCS and Infosys, the story is not very different, because the per day salary of CEOs continue to be much higher than what the freshers have been drawing. Let's quickly go across to TCS as well, wherein the fresher salary has remained stagnant and the CEOs draws almost twice of that. The other way to look at the entire CEO salary as well, that it is a proportion of what the stock price is as well as how the company's performance has been. However, having said that, there is a bit of dichotomy there as well. HCL Tech, while the annual revenue is just close to 85,000 crore rupees, the CEO salary is much higher at 130 crores. And similarly for Wipro, wherein the revenue is just 80,000 crore rupees, Theory Teleport draws a salary of 80 crore rupees. And this is quite divergent, because when you compare it to the biggies, the likes of Infosys and TCS, their revenue profile is much more higher. Infosys, for instance, has an annual revenue of 1.2 lakh crore rupees, but the CEO draws a salary of around 70 crores. And for TCS, which is the biggest of them all, a revenue profile of close to 2 lakh crore rupees, at least that is what the street is expecting for FY23. The CEO salary is around 26 crores. Of course, not a small number by any account. And if you look at the entire setup, we have seen that the salaries have increased materially.
All right, Anisha explaining this to us about the variance, and it does come across as a bit of a shocker. But let's see whether the experts on the subject are as shocked or not when they're looking at this data. Rituparna Chakraborty is co-founder and executive vice president at TeamLease, and Anirban Gupta is associate partner at AON. Great to have you both with us. Rituparna, coming to you first. There seems to be this strong disconnect, like my colleague was explaining, between the salaries paid to CEOs of our top IT firms in India and the kind of headwinds that the industry is facing right now. And of course, that gets translated into what the other employees make, in how the company does overall, in kind of the profits that they earn annually. Typically, do you see this level of variance that we're alluding to in other industries, or is this peculiar to the IT sector?
Thank you so much for having me on the show. Honestly, this is a very difficult subject to kind of give views on to begin with. To answer your last questions, is this something that we notice in certain organizations outside of IT? Of course, yes. I think there are data available, which especially for the listed organizations, where we can see that. I actually am a little worried when we about this whole debate, because I kind of do not understand what are we suggesting, that we should pay the CEOs less and we should pay the entry-level folks more. There has to be, again, a justification for any of this, right? So one can standalone have a debate on whether a particular CEO of a particular organizations, whether that person's compensation is justified or not. But linking it to that of an entry-level salary, I think there is a problem with that. And let me explain why. This actually alludes to the fact that India has a huge employability issue and a skill issue at the entry level. Like freshers in India, if you're not just in IT, if you cut across many job roles, the entry level salaries have barely moved. Interestingly, as their experience improves and their exposure at work improves, you will see how divergence starts happening at every level. And there is a leap which is noticed. So which actually begs the question that, I mean, is this data not good enough for us to focus on the importance of skilling our youth? Because I've always maintained India doesn't have a job problem, we have a wages problem. Everyone who needs a job has a job or are self-employed, they just don't have the wages that they aspire for. So this issue somewhere is linked to that.
No, so the real question, one sec, Rituparna, the real question that I'm perhaps alluding to, and I want to take it across to Anirban as well, is whether, because even when you compare it to median salaries, the variance seems to be quite large. So the question is, perhaps, are we paying the CEOs of the IT industry in India higher than what we should be paying them? Anirban, what is your view? Also tell us about the determinants of the size of CEO remuneration in India with specific reference to the IT sector. What are the factors that come into play over there, and what is the process that's followed for approving those remuneration packages?
I think, when you think about CEO compensation, especially in IT services, we have to be cognizant that they are global leaders. They may have a large workforce sitting out of India, but they are running global P&Ls and have to get compensated in line with what the cost of global talent is, right? And just the numbers you were throwing out, if you look at organizations that have homegrown their CEOs, their compensation is more in line with what would be more domestically aligned salaries. Whereas if you look at organizations that have gone and hired global, foreigners or expats as their CEOs, they are paying what are market aligned compensation globally, right? And I think why IT services different from rest of India Inc. is potentially, this is the only business or one of the only few businesses where you have a global business leader with large portions of workforce sitting in India, right? So this is not a place where you are selling and delivering in the country. You're delivering from the country, selling globally. You need global leaders to run it. And that, in my mind, itself talks about why the differential is that much, right? Because you've got large portions of the population sitting out of India who are the more doers. The leaders are driving global businesses, need to get paid global compensation. And that fundamentally justifies the gaps that you were talking about, right? I think to the question of how do boards look at it? In our experience, when we work with boards, I think what we fundamentally always seen is boards want to make sure that for the CEO talent, they are paying what is globally competitive the compensation for them, right? Today, your CEO could be from India. Tomorrow, they could be from UK. Day after tomorrow, the person could be from the US. And as an organization, you want to make sure that the compensation you're putting on the table is attractive for global talent and is in line with the value that they're creating for the organization. And more boards are looking at international benchmarks. They're looking outside the shores of this country to figure out, especially for organizations like IT services, what is competitive CEO comp.
So keeping that parity in mind, of course, is going to be rather important if you want to draw in good talent. And that's something that Rituparna was also alluding to, because at various levels, you'll find that the talent pool sometimes can be rather limiting, and to attract them, you do need certain remuneration packages that would actually get you that kind of talent. But Rituparna, in your understanding as well, when you're looking at these reports right now, the rising wage costs have been cited in almost all the quarterly reports as one of the reasons why the IT sector growth has been hit in recent times. When you look at that factor alone, how much do you think it actually becomes a hurdle to growth for the IT sector for the kind of salaries that we are paying out at the top end?
Like Anirban alluded to the board bit and the role of the board in something like this, I think It's the board as well as the shareholders, especially if you are a listed company, they are watching every move of the organization. And if they feel that a compensation is justified for a particular CEO and it can actually give the organization the returns and the growth that one is looking at in within 5 years, 10 years time, I think that's how choices are being made. Now, the impact of the rising wages, honestly, that's essentially happening because thanks to the pandemic, for the IT industry, the entire demand or outlook around technology, digitalization worldwide, and it cuts across all sectors, even traditional sectors, have essentially preponed, which means there has been a exponential expansion of demand and for skill sets for which we do not currently have supply available. And then there is impact of or the suspense around recession and inflation. So it is a situation right now, but the thing is, everyone is playing for the long haul right now. They are not really, yes, there is going to be an impact on the bottom line, but if you do not keep investing and retaining this talent and investing in them, essentially you're essentially putting your future at risk, which no organization would like to do at this stage.
It's a very crucial moment. Perhaps the reason why we are talking about this right now is because of the kind of headwinds that we are facing as far as global economies are concerned. And when you look at company reports, something that catches your eye is the kind of costs and where they're rising, because every day we're talking about inflation, we're talking about input costs, all of that going up. So when you see a big number over there, you wonder why. And that's the real reason. But because we are in this kind of downturn, when the pressures are highest, that's when we stand to question a lot of things. And this is one of them. But of course, it's something that is going to remain under the scanner for a bit. Thank you, Rituparna and Anirban, for joining us.